Managerial Accounting, Manufacturer's Cost Flows, Part 2, Work in Process Inventory. Now, we talked about how when materials are requisitioned that they flow into the factory and become part of the production process, part of the product that we are making. So the work in process inventory account actually represents that factory and the costs that are being incurred in that factory. So that's one way of keeping straight in your mind what is happening and what this inventory account represents. The work in process inventory account represents the cost of products that have started into the production process but have not yet been completed by the end of the period. Thus the term in process. They're still being made. So those costs of making that product are actually accumulated in this inventory account. So as with raw materials, the account is going to start out with the beginning balance. And this would be really an estimate of the cost at the stage of completion of the product as of the end of last period. And then, as we mentioned when we talked about the raw materials inventory account, from the raw materials account, those materials costs that were direct materials will be added to work in process. Now, in order to convert these direct materials into a finished product, we're going to need employees, assembly employees, so direct labor costs will also be added, and we need factory utilities, the machines, the lubricants that are used in those machines, the supplies for the maintenance personnel, and so forth and so on. All of those indirect costs that are being accumulated in the manufacturing overhead control account will be then applied to work in process as those products go through the production process. So we'll be adding the cost of manufacturing overhead, the indirect product costs. So the beginning balance plus direct materials plus direct labor plus manufacturing overhead. Then when the product has completed the production process, the costs are removed from the inventory account, the work in process inventory account, and transferred to a finished goods inventory account. Physically, the product will be moved from the production floor into a warehouse, a separate building. So the costs are going to do the same thing. The cost will be taken out of work in process inventory and recorded in a finished goods inventory account. So cost of completed units comes out of work in process and flows into the third manufacturer's inventory account, finished goods. And of course, the difference between the beginning balance plus the current production cost, the total manufacturing cost incurred this period, and the cost of the completed units is going to yield the ending balance, which, just like raw materials, is an asset which is reported on the balance sheet. So now, before we leave work in process, let me say one other thing about this cost of completed units. Now, we have a particular term that we use for the cost of completed units. It's called cost of goods manufactured. And in another video, we'll demonstrate how a report, the cost of goods manufactured report or schedule, is prepared. And when we prepare that schedule, think back to the cost flows through this inventory account. And you'll see that that schedule looks pretty much just like what we've just demonstrated here. So that finishes up the cost flows through work in process. Next step, finished goods.